The subconscious is very moldable, and sits back here in your head. And through the power of mantra or affirmation, in Sanskrit language they call it mantra, you can actually shape and create patterns within your mind. And I'm sure when you run, and again I'm assuming that you say like, I can do this, right? You don't say like, oh no, I'm going to fail.
Sure.
Right? And through that repetition, you create patterns in your mind. So if you follow a precise technique and system, you'd create patterns in your subconscious, which then become extremely magnetic and start to attract like-minded people towards you. So I use those techniques. I had affirmations or mantras that I would say every morning and every night and what they consist of is a concise choice of positive words. So you never say something like, oh, I'd like to be surrounded by successful people, but if I don't, it's okay. That's not a mantra. So like, I will surround myself with financially successful entrepreneurs who will teach me how to be successful.
Right.
And then it comes with the second thing that's important is a clear visualization. You have to have a clear visual concept of what the end product is going to look like. And then the third part of it, that's the most important component, is the feeling. You have to feel it, because feeling is emotion, emotion is energy, and energy is magnetic.
How do you feel it?
You remember a feeling of what it's like to experience sitting with someone who's a successful entrepreneur, spending time with them, walking away and asking yourself, wow, that felt really great. I learned so much and could really use these techniques in helping my business. Like, for example, if you win a race, you can remember the feeling of what it's like, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're doing an affirmation for your next race, you say, I will win this race, or I can win this race.
And you start to visualize that feeling you had when you won the last race.
Exactly. You visualize yourself going through the little ribbon. Okay, I don't know how your races are, right? You're walking through the ribbon.
Barbed wire in our case, but
barbed wire, exactly. Laser fence, right? Going through that, and then the feeling. What the feeling is like to win that. So you hold all three in your mind at the same time and you repeat it. It creates a pattern in your subconscious which then becomes extremely magnetic. It vibrates at a particular frequency of that success and it attracts things of a similar nature. And I would say that most people don't really want to face the fact that eventually one day we will all die.
Yeah.
People live their lives like they're going to live forever.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid to think of death. Death is not something pleasant. You don't think that your spouse will ever die, your child will ever die, you will ever die. But the fact is that we all die. Yeah. We've been evolving, for a few million years, I think, as a species.
Yeah.
And what's the oldest person you've ever heard? 110, 120 years old, maybe. Yeah. But that's about it. You never hear of a 500-year-old man or a 1,000-year-old woman. So, but once you realize that your time on Earth is finite, you start to become more focused. Yeah. But if you think that you had all the time in the world, then what's the reason to be focused? And people do this all day long, just jumping from one thing to another to another. And basically what happens is they become a slave to their technology. They allow technology to control where their awareness goes in their mind. So every time your smartphone or your laptop beeps or sends you a notification, you allow your awareness to get dragged to that particular area that it's calling you to. So it can go to Twitter, it can go to Facebook, it can go to email notifications, wherever it wants to go. And if you allow this to happen all day, what are you practicing? You're practicing getting distracted. As we control where awareness goes, we're controlling where energy is flowing. And if we're controlling where energy is flowing, we're controlling what's manifesting in our life. And this is a great secret to learn. This is something that I've learned in the monastery. My guru shared with me that's really changed my life. Because I've realized that all I need to do is control where my awareness goes. And if I can control where my awareness goes, I can control where my energy is flowing. And if I can control where my energy is flowing, I can control what is manifesting in my life. And therefore I can even choose to create positive things in my life or negative things in my life. I define concentration as the ability to keep that awareness on one thing for a prolonged period of time. So if I can keep my awareness on Eric and not drift away and think about the wedding, or drift away and think about the vacation, or what I'm going to do later, then I'm concentrating on Eric. Every time it drifts away, I bring it back. And the more I practice this, the more I practice concentration. So concentration is the ability to keep your awareness on one thing for a prolonged period of time. And that's a very simple definition of concentration. How do you get better at concentration? You practice this. You practice this 24 hours a day,
7 days a week, and it's the only way to get good at it. And what's the best way to practice it? The best way to practice it is to integrate it into everything that you do in your life. Not to meditate 10 minutes in the morning. It doesn't work. You really need to look at your life the same way a sprinter in the Olympics looks at his life. You've all heard of Usain Bolt, the man that won the gold medal twice, 2 Olympics in a row, broke the world record. I don't know anything about him, to be honest. But if I was looked at him, I would assume he goes to the gym, right? If you look at him, he's pretty ripped. He obviously sprints, he practices running, probably does a lot of long distance, he probably does a lot of stretching as well, I'm sure he gets massages. He looks like he eats the right kind of food, drinks the right amount of water, takes vitamins. His whole day is so disciplined. For what? To prepare him for 9.57 seconds. I think that's what the world record is, right? For 100 meters, 9.5 or 9.57 seconds. His whole day is preparing him for that short time, not the other way around. A lot of people say, you know what, I need to be more concentrated. So you know what, I'm going to meditate in the morning. I'll sit down for 2 minutes. Okay, now I'm Zen master. And the remaining 23 hours and 58 minutes, they just go about being ordinary and crazy. How does that work? How would you change? It's not balanced at all. So if for 23 hours and 58 minutes you were not being concentrated, you allowed your awareness to jump from one thing in your mind to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, in an uncontrolled way, what would you be good at? The best way to do it is pick a few opportunities in your everyday life. For example, we all speak with people. When I speak with somebody, I give them my undivided attention. I keep my awareness on them, and the conversation is really brief. Why? Because we're concentrated. We're not being distracted. A 10-minute conversation normally just takes 3 minutes because you're just so focused. And out of a prolonged concentration comes the wonderful power of observation. You just become more observant, and when you become more observant, you see solutions quicker and you solve things quicker. And it's a wonderful, powerful feeling when somebody is concentrated on you and not being distracted. Life is meant to be lived joyously. It truly is. If you're doing and living a life that's not joyous and happy, something is wrong and you need to make a change, right? We're here on this planet for a finite amount of time. Make it a good one. When my guru was dying, one of the last things he ever said was, "What an amazing life. I would not have traded it for anything in the world." And I said to myself, what beautiful words to hear from a dying man. I would love to be able to say in my last breath, look back on my life and go, what an amazing life it was. And that was just, I couldn't do it again, even if I tried. That was just fantastic. In order to do that, we really need to know what we want. But we begin by understanding our mind and learning how to manage our energy and wisely invest our energy. Take all the tools that I've shared with you, apply it one at a time in your life. Take one thing from this talk that really resonated with you and start applying it. If it's concentration, if it's giving someone your undivided attention, then start with that first. The problem with us as humans is that we try to do too much at one time, we get discouraged, and then we stop doing that. There's an old monk saying, a temple made of bricks is built one brick at a time. I would say learning how to manage your energy is really, really important in life. And one of the most important ways to do it is to really look at the people around you. And you can simplify, and this is a very simplified view, obviously we're doing it very quickly. Who are people that are uplifting in your life and who are people that drain you? And the people that drain you, I call them energy vampires. And sometimes these people are colleagues, friends, associates, and sometimes they're families and relatives as well. If you find that these energy vampires are inherently energy vampires, it's not because they're going through a hard time in life and might be going through a troubled period for a couple of years. Those are the people that you want to have more tolerance with. But people who are energy vampires all the time, then these are people you want to let go out of your life. Them. Yes, and you want to have the courage to do that. And most people can do that with friends or associates or clients, but when it comes to relatives and family, it's much harder. And I think if you value your life enough, then you'll do it. So I like to define life, a balanced life, as consciously, proportionately directing energy to the things and people that truly matter in your life. Balance, I don't look at balance as being 50-50. like a scale being balanced. It's not how I view balance. Balance is proportionately directing my energy to the things and people that truly matter in my life. And when I'm able to proportionally direct my energy, I know my life is in balance. But if my energy is not proportionally directed to the things and people that matter in my life, then my life is out of balance. It's so much easier to start a project than to finish a project, right? When you start a project, you're feeling creative, you're feeling inspired, you're full of energy. At the end of the project, you go, whose idea was this? So it requires tremendous amount of will to finish, and every time you complete something, you develop a little bit more will, and you have that muscle. And will is an amazing thing to develop, because once you develop will, that same will you can use in every aspect of your life to keep your awareness on one thing at a time, to finish projects, to see things through to the end, anything you want. The best way to develop will, bring it into your everyday life, into everything that you do. Give you an example, the way I integrate it into my everyday life, I try and finish what I begin. So for example, going to sleep. I sleep every night. So I put on my pajamas, I floss, I brush my teeth. I go to bed, I sleep, I wake up in the morning, I make the bed. Why? Because I'm finishing what I start. And it takes effort to make the bed. It's easier just to crawl out of it and walk away. So I can throw the sheet on it. It takes a little bit of will, so I know I'm developing my will. But instead of just throwing the sheet on it, I can make it really nice. So I fold the blanket, I finish it well beyond my expectations. I do a little bit more than I think I can. So someday I fold a blanket like they do at the Marriott, like a double fold, and someday I fold it at an angle like they do at the Sheraton. And my bed looks great. Every time I come into the room, my wife and I look at the bed and go, oh, it feels so nice. This is the place I rest and where I get stronger, and I made it look nice. I have a cup of coffee, I have breakfast, I rinse the bowl and I put it away. If I have enough time to make breakfast and eat breakfast, I have enough time to quickly rinse the bowl. It doesn't take much more effort. Children take toys out of the box to play with it. They have enough time to put toys back in the box. They just need to be taught to finish what they start. And if you integrate this practice into everything that you do, you start a conversation with someone, you finish the conversation, you don't leave the conversation halfway and go away. You finish the conversation and you move on. And so if you can integrate this practice into everything that you do in your life, you become better at it and you develop more will. To know yourself is the greatest gift you can give yourself, truly. We all spend so much time with other people and other things in life, but we never invest any time in getting to know ourselves. When someone wants to meet with you and catch up with you for coffee or drink, you'll make time for them. When was the last time you made time for yourself? How would you know what you want in life if you don't even spend time to get to know yourself? If you have a business, you would spend time to get to know the client, find out what the client wants in order to provide the best service for the client, right? So if you really want to understand what you want in life, if you want to know what you want or what your purpose in life is, you have to spend time with yourself. You have to learn how to concentrate. Because if you can't concentrate, you won't be able to sit there long enough and figure out what it is you want in life. And once you know what you want in life, you take that power of concentration and that finite amount of energy and you focus it into what you want, and that will start to manifest in life. And the byproduct of that is happiness. When you ask most people what do you want in life, most people's response is happiness. Happiness shouldn't be pursued. Happiness ensues. It comes as a byproduct of living a certain way.